where Downey Jr. pointed out to both Marvel and Disney that this could not only ruin his reputation, but also cost him fans, and he's against making those statements. However, both Bob and Kevin informed him that taking part in these types of statements and the press tour for Ironheart is built into his very expensive contract for the future of the MCU, mostly related to the return in Avengers Doomsday. RDJ is already challenging both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige that he will only make statements defending Ironheart and Riri Williams if it avoids arguments about DEI.
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark gets like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through and he's like, "Who is that?" And she's like, "I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark." And he's like, "I like that girl." And then
it's been over a week since Ironheart officially dropped all 6 episodes on Disney+, and by now, most fans and critics have formed a clear consensus. This series is a major misfire for Marvel Studios. Despite the buildup and promises of bold storytelling, emotional stakes, and meaningful connections to the legacy of Tony Stark, the show failed to deliver on almost every level. The pacing dragged, the writing felt disjointed, and the emotional depth, especially for a character meant to carry the Iron Man torch, simply wasn't there.
That they also had Robert Downey Jr., and they had him roll out and really kind of prop the show up and prop the character of Riri Williams up above Tony Stark, and really tried to really have him really as the face of the Ironheart press tour, and it really just backfired completely.
Even the highly anticipated cameo of Mephisto, portrayed by Sacha Baron Cohen, couldn't salvage the series. To be fair, Cohen did a fantastic job embodying the sinister charm of Mephisto, but his appearance felt like a tacked-on gimmick, rather than a meaningful addition to the plot. In isolation, his scenes were compelling, but they didn't fix the broken foundation of the series. And unfortunately, as we're about to uncover, some of the most intriguing elements, including potential tributes to Tony Stark, were completely scrapped behind the scenes, sparking serious drama between Robert Downey Jr. and Marvel Studios. One of the most shocking elements of the Ironheart fallout is the drama that's now erupted between Robert Downey Jr., Disney, and Marvel Studios.
Bob and Kevin refused, and they are forcing him to make statements to go against Marvel fans that are opposed to the Riri Williams character. Now, RDJ is also very annoyed with Marvel and Disney after they initially forced him to do PR and become a part of the press tour, since it was built into his contract for Doomsday, with the show.
It turns out that Ironheart was originally supposed to include multiple appearances of Tony Stark, not in physical form, but through holograms, flashbacks, and even dream sequences.
It deserves your attention. Ironheart deserves your attention.
Marvel had crafted scenes using a blend of deepfake technology, archived footage, and voice modulation, all with RDJ's full permission. These weren't random fan service moments either. One planned scene in particular would have revealed a confession from Tony Stark, uncovering hidden truths about Obadiah Stane, the villain from Iron Man 1, and reshaping the way we understand Stark's legacy. This hologram was supposed to be shown to Riri Williams by Zeke Stane, Obadiah's son, as a way to connect Riri to the legacy of Iron Man and build narrative weight around her arc. But after test screenings didn't go well, Marvel scrapped the entire subplot without warning Downey. Not only were his scenes cut from the final edit, but Marvel also refused to include them as deleted scenes on Disney+, something that reportedly violated RDJ's contract.
Recall when they forced Robert Downey Jr., they made a deal with him to take part in the press tour to prop up Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne, on multiple talk show programs out there, a lot of which were, of course, affiliated with Disney. We'll talk more about that down the road. However, this is where it gets really intense, because we know that Robert Downey Jr. is a very busy man right now. He is heavily involved with Avengers Doomsday.
Tied to Avengers Doomsday. Understandably, this led to major tension and a heated confrontation between Downey and Marvel executives. By scrapping all of Tony Stark's appearances, Marvel made a critical creative decision that arguably backfired. Stark's presence, even just as a hologram or through archived footage, would have created an essential bridge between the past of the MCU and its future, especially considering that Riri Williams is positioned as Iron Man's spiritual successor. Instead, the show severs that emotional link, leaving Ironheart to stand on its own, and it simply wasn't strong enough to carry that weight. The decision not only weakened Riri's origin arc, but also alienated longtime fans who were hoping for a meaningful connection to Iron Man. It's one thing to introduce new characters. Marvel has done this well before.
Going out there from the media that you are just a racist if you don't like Ironheart. The reason it's getting this backlash, the reason it's getting bad reviews, the reason that fans don't like what they see, it's just because all the damn racists out there, Jay.
But cutting ties with a legacy figure like Tony Stark, especially after teasing those connections, felt disrespectful to both fans and RDJ. Even Marvel insiders have acknowledged that this move may have contributed to the lukewarm reception and plummeting viewership that Ironheart is now facing. Following the initial round of test screenings, Marvel and Disney made sweeping changes to Ironheart, and not for the better. One of the most significant casualties, the Tony Stark hologram scene that had already been fully completed using deepfake technology and voice modulation with Robert Downey Jr.'s full consent. This moment was meant to show Riri discovering a hologram of Tony Stark.
One major development that is now active involves drama surrounding Robert Downey Jr. in the midst of the Ironheart ratings nightmare. Now, already Robert Downey Jr. is enraged with both Disney and Marvel, as well as Marvel fans. Already Bob Iger and Kevin Feige held a recent emergency call/meeting that included Robert Downey Jr. remotely, where they were pressuring him to make a
presented by Zeke Stain, in which Stark delivers a confession that alters what we knew about Obadiah Stane and the events of Iron Man 1. It would have retroactively added depth to the MCU's first chapter and tied Riri's journey to Tony's legacy in a profound way. But Marvel pulled the scene, citing negative test audience reactions and fears that Stark's cameo would overshadow Riri Williams. From a business standpoint, this might have seemed like protecting the new lead. Creatively, it was a huge miss. This was one of the few scenes that could have legitimized Riri's place in the MCU and helped fans buy into her story. Cutting it stripped the show of its potential to be a true continuation of the Iron Man saga. Robert Downey Jr.'s frustration didn't just stop at creative disappointment.
Kevin Feige and even Dominique Thorne heading into complete damage control to really take control of the situation, and so far that has worked to no avail. Well, this is exactly what's been going on now, to the point where Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are getting involved in a lot of drama with RDJ, Robert Downey Jr.
It escalated into full-blown conflict with Disney and Marvel executives. Why? Because RDJ wasn't just aware of the scenes they deleted, he was directly involved. He approved the use of his likeness, even recorded audio where necessary, and did it all under the impression that these appearances, if not used in the final cut, would at least be released as deleted scenes. That was reportedly part of his contractual understanding, especially since he had already signed on for the upcoming Avengers Doomsday. But Marvel scrapped the scenes completely, and more importantly, informed RDJ that they would never release them publicly, not even as bonus material or on Disney+. This move triggered heated arguments between Downey and top executives, including Bob Iger and Kevin Feige. It wasn't just about being cut, it was about trust. RDJ had even taken part in the Ironheart press tour, something he was contractually obligated to do, based on the promise that his scenes would have relevance. But when that promise was broken, and he was left promoting a show where he no longer appeared, tensions boiled over. Disney's response? That including Tony Stark in any way would distract from Riri Williams' project, character arc, and damage the brand's DEI, diversity, equity, inclusive focus. RDJ, however, reportedly rejected this framing and refused to publicly defend the series beyond acknowledging the backlash. He wasn't interested in being a mouthpiece, just a collaborator who expected transparency and respect. Despite all the tension surrounding Ironheart, surprisingly, Robert Downey Jr.'s involvement in Avengers Doomsday remains intact for now, even though he's locked in a very public and private dispute with Disney and Marvel executives over broken promises. Sources suggest that no production delays or script rewrites have occurred for Doomsday at this point. However, the relationship is clearly strained. Insiders say things have become awkward between RDJ and Marvel leadership, especially Kevin Feige, while Downey is still expected to reprise his role in a major way for Doomsday. It's no longer smooth sailing behind the scenes. This friction could affect how prominently Tony Stark is featured or whether Downey is willing to promote the movie when it eventually hits theaters. What's making things worse is that Disney is now pressuring RDJ to not only speak out against the Ironheart backlash, but to actively defend the show and advocate for its messaging around DEI. RDJ reportedly refuses to do that. He's only willing to acknowledge the backlash exists and nothing more. This line he's drawing in the sand might not sit well with Disney, especially when it comes to future promotional obligations. So even though Avengers Doomsday isn't being derailed yet, RDJ's trust in Marvel appears fractured, and that tension could very well ripple into the broader MCU if not resolved. One of the biggest bombshells to come out of the Ironheart controversy is that Tony Stark was originally supposed to appear, and not in some vague Easter egg way either. We're talking about fully rendered scenes featuring Robert Downey Jr.'s likeness, voice, and even newly created dialogue using deepfake and voice modulation tech, all of which RDJ reportedly approved. Here's what Marvel had planned but ultimately scrapped. A hologram scene in Episode 2 where Zeke Stane shows Riri Williams a message from Tony Stark. This wasn't just fan service. It would have revealed new secrets about Obadiah Stane, essentially retconning Iron Man 1 with Tony making a confession about Ironmonger's true intentions. A handful of flashbacks and archived footage featuring Stark, woven into the narrative to build a connection between him and Riri. Dream sequences where Tony appears to Riri as a subconscious mentor figure, possibly meant to echo how he influenced Peter Parker in the Spider-Man trilogy. All of it was completed, ready to go. But after test screenings, Marvel cut every single one of these moments, citing concerns that Tony Stark's presence would overshadow Riri Williams, the supposed star of the series. This decision infuriated Robert Downey Jr., especially because Disney allegedly promised those scenes would be wrapped. Deleted material on Disney+. That was apparently written into his contract during his onboarding for Avengers Doomsday, and now they've walked back that promise. Whether you agree with including Tony or not, the fact remains, Marvel had the opportunity to create a bridge between beloved legacy characters and new heroes like Riri, and they chose not to. Now let's dig into the big what if. Would including Tony Stark have actually salvaged Ironheart? Honestly, probably not entirely, but it definitely could have helped. Here's why. The Ironheart series suffered from a lack of emotional depth and legacy connection. Riri Williams is a new character who, despite having a brilliant mind and some cool tech, didn't have a real emotional hook for longtime MCU fans. That's where Tony could have made a difference. Even just a hologram, especially one that revealed secrets or confessions tied to Iron Man 1, could have anchored the show in established MCU lore, giving fans familiar to latch onto, given Riri's journey more narrative weight, as Stark's legacy would be directly influencing her path. Boosted engagement by drawing in Iron Man fans who might have skipped the show otherwise. Think about how well-received Stark's brief presence was in Spider-Man Far From Home and No Way Home, despite being gone. Marvel knew the value of Tony's legacy then, so what changed? According to reports, Disney and Marvel feared Tony would overshadow Riri. And honestly, that's a weak argument. Riri was never going to be on Stark's level out the gate. The smarter play would have been to let him serve as a narrative handoff, bridging the past and the future, not erasing the past to force the future. Would Tony Stark's scenes have saved Ironheart? Probably not. but they absolutely would have added depth, credibility, and momentum. 3 things the show desperately lacked. So where does all this leave Robert Downey Jr., Marvel Studios, and the broader MCU? It's not a good look for Marvel. RDJ, arguably the face of the MCU, is reportedly frustrated, blindsided, and misled. He gave his likeness, his voice, and even participated in promotional efforts under the impression that his scenes, at the very least as deleted material, would be shown. But Disney cut them and worse, reportedly refused to release them anywhere, despite what RDJ says was a contractual agreement. That decision has sparked intense arguments between RDJ and top Marvel Disney executives, including Bob Iger and Kevin Feige. And it's not just about Ironheart, it's about trust. Here's the problem for Marvel. RDJ is still contracted for Avengers: Doomsday, which is already under pressure to deliver as a multiverse climax. This tension has made things awkward behind the scenes, even though as of now, it hasn't delayed production. Disney allegedly forced Downey to promote Ironheart as part of his Doomsday contract, a move that only added fuel to the fire. Scenes were cut. And then there's the broader trend. This isn't just an RDJ issue. Similar behind-the-scenes drama has affected actors like Jeremy Renner, who was offered less money for Hawkeye Season 2 after speaking out. This signals a deeper pattern of broken promises and studio manipulation that could affect Marvel's talent relationships going forward. If this pattern continues, it could undermine the entire MCU's long-term stability. Because if Marvel can't even keep Iron Man himself happy, who's going to trust them next? In short, RDJ isn't walking away yet, but his loyalty is clearly strained, and Marvel better tread carefully if they want him to stick around in any meaningful way. So to wrap this all up, Ironheart as a series has fallen flat for many fans. From the creative inconsistencies to the cut cameos, the entire rollout felt like Marvel trying to force a story that wasn't fully ready. The removal of Tony Stark's planned appearances despite Robert Downey Jr. involvement and promotion only made things worse, both for the fans and behind the scenes. What was supposed to be a bold new chapter in the MCU has now become a case study in studio mismanagement, broken promises, and fan alienation. And with key actors like RDJ now in conflict with Marvel execs, it raises serious concerns about the direction Marvel is taking in Phase 5 and beyond. Whether you enjoyed Ironheart or not, one thing's for sure: the real drama is happening off-screen, and it could have lasting effects on the MCU's future. If you want to stay updated on all the behind-the-scenes drama, breakdowns, leaks, and updates on Ironheart and Marvel's upcoming projects, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tap the bell for notifications. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did Marvel make the right call by cutting RDJ's scenes? Or did they just miss a golden opportunity to honor the legacy of Tony Stark? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.